welcome you to the Del Norte County Board of Supervisors regular session. And please take the roll.
Supervisor Borges?
Here.
Supervisor Starkey?
Here.
Supervisor Howard?
Here.
Chair Wilson?
Here.
Supervisor Short is absent for the minutes.
If you would please join me in a moment of reflection, please. Supervisor Howard, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic.
Do we have an introduction of new employees?
Not today, Chair.
Thank you. Any action to report out for County Council from the closed session?
No, Chair.
Having none. Chair requests at this time deletions, corrections, additions to the board members of the agenda at this time. In order to add an item to the agenda, the matter must come before the attention of the county subsequent to the posting of the agenda, and the matter requires action before the next regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Is there any such items? Hearing and seeing none. We received brief reports and announcements relative to Del Norte County programs, projects, progress, and 2x2 committees, goal committees of our board and staff travel and training reports. And as usual, Ms. Starkey, Supervisor Starkey, could you please begin?
Yes, no, thank you, Chair. I attended the monthly Chamber of Commerce board meeting, and we were gearing up for Sea Cruise, which happened this last weekend. Very successful. The weather cooperated. We had over 200 cars enter into the show, and lots of laughter and lots of fun, and so it was a good time. I was asked to man the barricades for the cruise that night, and I'll tell you, I'll never do that again. That was rough. People want to get to where they want to get to, and the barricades mean nothing to them. But we continued the work on Teen Court. Teen Court's moving right along. We are looking for funding, and so we have some ideas that we would like to present at some point, but we are looking for some funding for Teen Court. Teen Court's going to be for those kids that get into trouble for relatively minor things that perhaps just need some of that low-level intervention. I participated in a 211 discussion with regional representatives about ways in which we could partner perhaps with Humboldt's call center that could help cut some of the costs. 211 has been offered here before during COVID, and we had the state had provided some financing for that. When that was cut, some of the services for 211 was cut. But my high school Spanish teacher has reached out and has asked for that to be reintroduced because not everybody uses social media. And so one of the things is that when we need to get information out to the public, I think it's our responsibility to look for all the ways in which we can get that done, especially for those older people who don't use Facebook. Although I heard today that Facebook is the older person's social media, and things like Instagram and Snapchat is a little bit more hip. I got a call from a constituent about some holes that are bored into the ground off the cliffs of Pebble Beach. They look like they're man-made holes, and he is concerned about those holes contributing to the deterioration of the cliff. So I contacted building maintenance, who is working with risk management, to see if there should be some sort of warning posted, because apparently the holes are pretty big. This particular constituent is actually an environmentalist from the Navy, and so I always take to heart the information that this particular constituent provides to me. So I appreciate any time that the public wants to reach out with concerns that they have. I did attend the 75th anniversary of the First Baptist Church and was honored to be able to speak on behalf of District 2 for that church. It was a lovely celebration, and churches in our community really do provide so much, and especially the First Baptist Church. We do partner with them for a lot of things. One is emergency shelter in the event of a an emergency. So it was an honor to be able to speak at that church celebration. I attended virtually the local behavioral health board meeting yesterday. One of the exciting things about that meeting is that we, as a group, have determined that we want to have some mini goals, so goals that we want to accomplish within this next year. One of the goals is to review the impact and efficiency of DHHS and the behavioral health programs. Oftentimes they look good on paper, but I really want to make sure, we really want to make sure that people are getting served by those programs, and that we are, as a county, being very efficient in that. We want to improve public messaging. We want to improve and increase the outreach for hard-to-engage individuals, such as veterans and those 50 years and older who are still using Facebook, apparently. And then we want to continue working closely with Sutter Coast Hospital towards getting that empath unit built and up and running. And the empath unit, as you know, is an alternative to actually sending people away on a 5150 hold that need it. We're trying to stabilize them in the community before having to spend the money to send them out of the community. I do want to note that there's an application. We are looking for members for the local behavioral health board, those with lived experience. I'm hoping that you can apply. You can get your application at the Board of Supervisors office with our clerk of the board, Samantha, and those are due tomorrow by 5. It's been open for a while. I attended the Area 1 Agency on Aging Advisory Council meeting. I will be providing more details on this in the future. We are looking for a legislative advocate that will represent our area in the legislature. They're looking at 22 bills this next year. They have to narrow it down to 10 that will help improve the lives of the elderly population. And finally, I did attend the City Council meeting last night where they had a lot of good discussions with regard to ordinances that they were passing. And that is my report.
Thank you. Supervisor Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, it was a busy couple of weeks since our last meeting, and several items I would like to address with the board. I'll start out with some stuff that hit our radar here a couple of years ago when the Del Norte Trail Alliance brought to our attention and received a nice letter of support specific to mountain bike trails within our national recreation area. And as part of these discussions, the Resource Advisory Committee, which is a body that the board appoints and the Forest Service grants positions to that helps fund activities in our national recreation area of the National Forest here in our backyard. Part of our letter of support supported mountain bike trails within this area. And Joe Gillespie, as the president of this association, has gone out and raised funds to develop trail plans within our area. This all happened during COVID. And to a certain extent, the first trails that they selected were around the Craigs Creek area. Well, the Forest Service during that period of time moved that trail up into the Hurdy-Gurdy Creek recreation area, which is a sub-recreation area of our national forest. They felt it was more important to start there if we're going to do any mountain bike trails in the area. However, unbeknownst to the residents who weren't consulted with at the time, there's perceived conflict with that intended use and potentially the amount of visitors that could potentially come to that area. And so I drove up last week to Big Flat, met with 10 residents, and then in addition, we were brought into a meeting on Monday this week, yesterday, with the Forest Service at the Gasky Ranger District, where we had about 28 people specifically discuss a potential project in Hurdy-Gurdy Creek for a mountain bike trail path, and in addition, some of the concerns that the residents had, which were many. My hope is that we could find a way to work together with the constituents that I have in Big Flat and also with the Forest Service to find some middle ground if necessary, or some of the alternate sites that were selected like Craigs Creek to develop this bike trail, which in my opinion is essential for this community and also for the intended use of our national recreation area. So just to give you a heads up that this might come back to our agenda at some point in the near future. Also wanted to bring up discussions that we had at the Border Coast Regional Airport Authority meeting. It was incredible to see 3 consecutive months in a row the Hawthorne LA flight for Advanced Airlines has gone up consecutively by significant percentages, and I'm glad to see that flight taking off because it looks like they're going to keep it around, and that makes me pretty dang happy. In addition, SiteLogic also gave a presentation to the airport about the microgrid system, and it was really focused similarly to the way Humboldt County and their Arcata Airport approached that discussion, being one of the first in the nation to microgrid an essential service. And then lastly, at the airport meeting, we discussed having our first service provider out there, in this case, a coffee stand. And they're going to work with staff to develop that agreement between the Border Coast Airport Authority and a private citizen to open up a coffee stand out at the airport. I wish them the best of success. One of the more critical things that came on our radar, and I've been working with a private citizen that has a lot of care about the fleet that we have in our Crescent City Harbor, what remains of it. Recently, Pacific Seafood has made a choice to essentially pull out of the ice plant that has traditionally operated at the end of Citizens Dock. Pulling out that ice plant means that there would be no ice essentially available to our commercial fishermen. And that would impact well over a third of the fleet, which would cause that fleet to either disperse north or south, but not utilize our harbor to bring in especially things like live crab, coonstripe prawns, and groundfish. It is a significant impact because of the age of that facility. That Pacific Choice said, no, we're washing our hands of this, and them pulling out means that our fleet essentially has to go. That's not acceptable at this point in time. We've watched too many businesses circle the drain here because of the impact of us not investing or at least helping guide them to potential infrastructure fixes. And so I've been working with Josh Mims and at least our contacts through staff, Randy Hooper in particular, to bring in USDA as part of this discussion. I'm hoping and looked forward to some outreach from the harbor, but I haven't heard yet. I know they've had some staffing changes with Tim Petrick resigning recently, but my hope is that we, the county, can help support any process that helps get an ICE facility either retooled there at that location or a portable unit through some USDA monies or other federal dollars that could be available. So working very closely with Josh and ensuring that our fleet stays intact and here in our home port of the Crescent City Harbor. Also working on the California State Insurance Working Group, had a good discussion here about that last week. Worked with Chair Wilson on the North Coast Resource Partnership meeting that's coming here towards the end of the month. And then had a real incredible discussion with Ryan Flynn, who's the new president of Pacific Power. We were his last stop on a tour of all the operations centers for Pacific Power here in his region. He laid out a very dim picture for Pacific Power, and more importantly, what he's seeing come through as power companies becoming the last bastion of insurance when fire occurs. And it's impacted a lot of their bottom lines as private businesses to where him as an attorney essentially has been selected to be president. It should be, as he stated, a lot of good writing on the wall where they're going in the future is literally preparing for the liability essentially from impacts of forest fire that could be caused by their utility infrastructure. But there is hope, and where we really tried to focus the conversation is on Del Norte and our needs and having redundancy, specifically having a look at what it would take to have those capital expenditures to reconnect us to the harbor in Brookings. We know some of those figures have ranged anywhere from $25 to $80 million. He says that's really not in that deck of cards, and I explained to him it might not be in your deck of cards, but with a partnership between the county and others that utilize these resources, we could come together and find the money to do this, but it's desperately needed. But in the short-term step, we did discuss the importance of the microgrid concept and protecting our critical infrastructure. As we know, it is going to be a real mess if we have a 64 flood again, a tsunami, or something else that cuts off all our access points to this community, and we have no way to bring in the diesel that's necessary to power those generators, keep us flowing. So I think it's important discussion. He was very open to those ideas, and I'm looking forward to talking with him here more in the future to solidify some direction with his staff and our staff. And that's the end of my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Supervisor Borges. You're good. I attended LAFCO, and we had discussions about the changes and recommendations that are going on at the Klamath Fire District, and they're moving towards trying to find resolution to some of their issues economically to continue. They have a good number of individuals there that are working, 15 volunteers that are working at that station, so they have the personnel. Where they are seriously lacking is the dollars to continue their and maintain their equipment and their headquarters. They are working with the tribe. There is a potential that tribal development money may also include a fire station in the actual Klamath town site, and that's going to be looked at in their discussions, and so we hope that those continue. They also have discussions that they are ongoing with Delaware Ambulance about citing a ambulance in there, but that has to be done cooperatively and collectively with both the fire district as well as tribal participation in order to make that work. But they have, and they are engaged in discussions. We also talked about the harbor and the need for continuing observation of their condition as they go forward. They have various economic challenges, as you have heard, with the pullout of Pacific Seafood. They pulled out of California, moving north. All of their operations out of California due to their restrictive and regulations that have made it hard for them to continue. But since they were the only ice provider currently in the harbor, and it is a absolute necessity for the fishing fleet to have ice to be pumped into their holds, because when they go out, whether it's tuna or crab, unless they have a live tank, they have to have ice in order to keep the fish fresh in between the time that they're out and the time they get back. Without the ice, they cannot go out and fish for the items that they need commercially to sustain themselves here without an ice plant. And because it is frozen water, it is not a high income driver, but it is an absolute necessity. And so the way that they had operated their operations was as the boats needed, at the time when they needed it, they would have someone down there to work it. So it wasn't a continually maintained or staffed service, but it was a demand service, and a necessity for the fleet. So LAFCO is going to continue to keep the Harbor District under observation as they go forward, because as a district, they have certain mandates and requirements within their development, and if they find themselves financially unable to meet those requirements, it may come to losing their district. So hopefully that is not something that they're actively trying to prevent. They're actually trying to engage, and we want to help them in that process, because we cannot lose our harbor. It is has been an economic driver for us, and we hope will continue to be so. Also attended we have a economic ad hoc, so county economic development ad hoc meeting was attended. We had discussions with several organizations and several counties that are in the process and have already developed economic programs within their county, and both looking towards the things that were successful and also the things that were a challenge for them to go forward. We will be having, after this meeting, another meeting today on that as we go forward to bring forward a presentation and recommendations back to this board. I will also be attending in this week on Thursday and Friday. There is a economic summit in Humboldt put on by Redwood Rise, and I will be attending that, looking at what their recommendations are, the things that they're going forward in this region under Redwood Rise. It is a regional economic development process that engages in looking towards promoting small business development in our region. It includes Del Norte, Humboldt, Mendocino counties, and Lake County. So it is a regional, and I'll be attending that. Also have had numerous meetings with various concerned citizens about problems both in the Union Street area with the homeless camps, and as well as some of the other issues within our community, access to roads, et cetera. And so we will have discussions with both planning and with code enforcement about those issues going forward. One of the issues that I'm concerned about, because we saw the problem when we had the power outage for a duration of time, where communications became critical and an issue. Looking at what is going on in the area of after Helena went through and devastated the Carolinas, as well as Florida and Tennessee and some of the other states, and the issues that they're dealing with, bring it back home to us, and that is our dependency on cellular devices have really impacted communications when disasters happen and those systems are compromised. We felt that after about the second day here in Delaware County, when the battery backups to all of our cell towers went out and were not being replenished. And so looking at some of the issues and looking towards solutions, I would recommend that we look at Starlink as a potential pickup through the EOC to provide services to our uplinks to our critical infrastructure, so that we have the ability, when our cell phone service is compromised, to be able to integrate and get back up online as quickly as possible through Starlink. Has been a tremendous impact. Not only is it impacting the area hardest hit by this hurricane, but also it has been utilized in Ukraine and Brazil and other areas where communications is absolutely non-existent, and yet is successfully able to go through the Starlink packages. And so I think that's one of the resources that we need to prepare for, so that when those kinds of crises do happen, communication can be integrated and done quickly, so that our critical infrastructure, those of our county, city, and our tribal partners can and our outlying communities, Gasky, Hayuchi, Klamath, will have communications capability, because as we've seen through flood or other devastations that have hit here, whether it's landslides or these communications can get isolated very quickly. And without having communications capabilities, we do have ham radios. That's helped us when these kinds of things have come down. However, Starlink would be a great solution for us, looking at that as a potential possibility as a backup to our system, because I know we had portable communications devices that were purchased through the EOC and through the sheriff's office, but most of those are so old that they no longer are viable for utilization, and so we need to upgrade. That'll end my presentation. Thank you so much. We have a few minutes. We will take up the consent agenda. Is there any public comment on the consent agenda?
I'm glad to see that this board has decided to address some vital issues in this community. But I see again we have 12 of the 19 items on the consent agenda this time around. Seems like of the remaining items that you have for business, one is the public comment. One is a couple are pay increases for county employees, a couple of reports, and you're going to talk about fireworks again. I thought, for general information, perhaps you might be interested in something. I've been keeping a scorecard of what this board has done for the past 9 months, and of the 257 items that have appeared on the agenda over the course of the last 9 months, 18 meetings. 282 of them have been on the consent agenda, about 60% of the county's business, of which 100% passes by a 5-0 vote. Of the groups that particularly abuse the consent agenda are Health and Human Services, 111 items. Considerable chunk of use of the consent agenda. Other than that, community development, the administration, and the remaining departments of the county infrequently also use the community or the consent agenda. What I did notice is that over the past 9 months, the Sheriff's Department, which I would consider one of the most important departments in the county, has appeared on the consent agenda 4 times. 3 to talk about search and rescue, 1 for the undersheriff. That's pretty appalling considering the remaining 168 items that this board has addressed. Only 81 of them have required a vote. Of those 81, a vast majority of them consist of budget transfers, the public comment, and the remaining items are probably less than 10% of the total business in this county. So what I'm saying to you is that we're being governed by the unelected here in this county rather than the elected, and that something's got to change because the community needs to know what's going on the consent agenda, not guessing, not being slapped in the face by something that comes down the pipe that they don't know anything about.
Thank you.
This is appalling.
Any other public comment on the consent agenda?
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. It's Alicia Williams. I came in a little late, but I was really excited you guys were talking about the harbor because they're in a really tough situation, and unfortunately, the previous leadership there did not.
Are we talking about the harbor?
You guys were talking about the harbor, so I thought I could.
No. This is just for consent agenda.
Oh,
However,
okay.
you can come back during regular public comment.
Is that going to come up here shortly?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other public comment on the consent agenda? Seeing none, bring it back to the board.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. Pull the vote, please.
Supervisor Howard,
Yes.
Supervisor Borges,
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey,
Yes.
Chair Wilson.
Yes. And that'll bring us to our scheduled time item at 10:25, and that is public comment. Members of the public may address the board on the matters that are within the jurisdiction of the board. If you are addressing the board regarding a matter listed on the agenda, you may be asked to hold your comments until the board takes up that matter. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes or less. There you go.
Good morning, Supervisors. Donna Westfall here, and a couple of things. I've been asked to read this public comment from Linda Sutter as she's not back in town yet. And secondly, I have to take my cat to the vet, so I can't stay around for agenda item number 18. So therefore, she says, ladies and gentlemen, after thoroughly reviewing the proposed ordinance, I must express my grave concern. What I see before me is nothing short of a legislative nightmare. We're dealing with a situation where 3 different jurisdictions are coming together to create an ordinance, and yet we're relying on a random individual to enforce it. Someone with no formal training in due process or hearing procedures. Excuse me. This is a recipe for confusion and inconsistency. Frankly, the ordinance lacks any semblance of structure. It should be treated no differently than a traffic violation, which is processed through the Superior Court. There, procedures are clear and consequences are meaningful, with the ability to revoke a driver's license if fines aren't paid. Why does this ordinance fail to provide such consequences? It is essential that the same level of seriousness is applied here. I am extremely disappointed that we are even entertaining something so substandard. It does not rise to the level of what is needed to protect our community or ensure accountability. Moreover, it is my understanding that our district attorney is waiting to see how this ordinance unfolds as a way to sidestep current legal cases. These cases involve individuals whose negligence caused serious bodily injury to several people, including a 3-year-old child who nearly lost their life. This is unacceptable. If we had someone like Martha Rice drafting an ordinance for a dog that had been injured, I'm certain it would come with far more stringent consequences. Yet here, human lives are at stake, and this ordinance does not reflect the gravity of that reality. This ordinance, as it stands, is not worth the paper it was written on. It must be sent back to the drawing board. I strongly urge that research be conducted on San Diego's firework ordinance, which serves as a far better model. We can build from there and create something that ensures real accountability, meaningful enforcement, and most importantly, the safety of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes. This is your time.
And I just grabbed it. Did you want to go?
Oh, gee, he was here first.
Is that okay? Thanks, Sam, right? Sam? Thank you. Sorry, you guys. So, put my cap on back onto the harbor. So Chris Howard, that's awesome. Okay, you guys are starting to collaborate. Yeah, the leadership there, they didn't reach out. This has been happening for a while. They're like nosediving severe. They lost the fashion blacksmith was a huge part of it, because Dean did mention the pullout of Pacific Seafood, but that's not all. Fashion blacksmith bailed. There was like a huge, I'm sure you guys know about the lawsuit with that. Crescent Seafood, I was told, is leaving. I don't know all the ins and outs, but that's not good. I know that they're, now that we've got him out of the way, for lack of a better word, and Mike is there. I don't know if you're with Mike Rademacher, but I've been working with him, and he's really level-headed. He's been with the harbor since 2010. We have a lot of great momentum now. We're getting over the hump. So I've been pushing for collaboration, so I'm like really excited you guys are talking about this. One thing I wanted to point out, so for the resiliency part moving forward, there's a really cool aquaculture that I came across for oysters specifically. And if you go to NOAA, go to fisheries.noaa.gov, I think it's NOAA how you say it, NOAA.gov, and then /search oyster. It comes up with quite a bit of data there. And so the benefits with that is resiliency in terms of the economy that it brings. It cleans the water, oysters, and then they build up shoreline and help retain the soil and rock from washing away, which I know that's some concerns there as well. Another piece of the struggle with the harbor is there was a lapse in their dredging permit. We got a little bit of data on the last meeting finally about why, and supposedly it had to do with the tsunami in 2010 or 11, and they lost some paperwork. I don't know, but it's like a major hurdle. Now, I'm hoping that you guys, since you're government, you can work with upper government that permits that dredge and see if we can have a little leniency here, because they had an emergency, so it wasn't just mismanagement. They literally just like had a tsunami. So so if you guys could help with that as well, and then can I get a copy of Chris Howard's report that you're going to be? I would love that, because that's going to help a lot with, and then I think that was it for that right now. Then you did bring up, I don't know if I can speak about this, but the emergency services part that you guys were talking about, this is really, I'm trying to find out more about this, because I'm partnering with the sheriff and the city manager and the chief about the fireworks thing. I've been kind of like really super like, we got to change the culture about this unsafety happening around the July 4th. So in my mind, the emergency services that we have existing already in our community, like from Red Cross and whatever we have at the county, we should be leaning on them for additional support so that we can shift this. And then I have a lot of great ideas, but I was told that the ad hoc committee is not open to community members. It's closed. So
Appreciate it.
okay.
Glad to see you're addressing vital, important things in the county. But I somehow think that 2 more weeks have gone by and I don't see anything happening at the sheriff's station. I think 14 days have gone by or more, and who knows how soon the sheriff's going to start losing other patrol deputies, other correctional officers at the jail. Pretty soon the sheriff won't be able to control or be able to send a patrol deputy to quell a riot of 10-year-olds at a lemonade stand. It's pretty clear that you need to do something. This is far more vital than microgrids and all the other paraphernalia that you seem to encumber the taxpayer with. I am disappointed that the sheriff is not taken more seriously, that you have, $4+ million sitting in a Measure R fund that was promised to the community to fix address such vital pieces of the county's government, safety and security, and you've not done so. I think this is a serious lapse in your leadership in the county, and that you better get on your horse and deal with it, because pretty soon we won't have a sheriff's department if you continue the way you've continue to be miserly and Scrooge-like. You need to pay those guys what they need to be paid. When a deputy receives the pay equivalent to an office assistant at many of the county departments in the county government, that's appalling. The idea that it's going to be 1.5 years before we can get any help, and that will be people out of the academy who need training and time on the street to acclimate themselves. We should be able to pay people sufficient amounts of money so that we can do the same thing that people are doing to us, other jurisdictions, where they steal our officers by virtue of $8, $10, $12, $15 more an hour, where they can actually live humanely in a society that may not be the best of locale, Stockton, Vallejo, places down south, but clearly you need to do something that is going to keep deputies here in this county, that we can get some deputies that have some experience, which we do not have now, except in a very limited fashion. This is absolutely appalling. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
Hi, my name is Christopher Johns. I approached you guys a couple of weeks ago at the last meeting to let you know that I was doing a feeding ministry for the homeless and people less fortunate in this community. Okay, as of such, there's a lot of people that wanted me to make sure that they're recognized. One would be Wild River Market, the other one would be Stromberg Realty, the other one would be Norris Family Kitchen. These people all support me and my ministry and what I'm doing. Matter of fact, you have the ability to walk into Norris Family Kitchen when they're open, as long as you're presentable and not inebriated, and just simply say, Chef Christopher sent you there, and I will feed you. Okay? That's ability. What I'm asking for the board is, I'm asking for any kind of support that you guys feel that you may be able to help me with in this, with the aspect of one thing. When these people get fed, they make proper decisions, because good nutrition makes good decisions. So what I'm asking is if that you could put me on the agenda, that you could give me some kind of support from the county to help this continue, because I'm helping in the aspect of, if these people have something to eat, they're not out stealing our stuff, okay? They're not out roaming because they don't need to, because they have food. If they have the ability to get there, then that's fine. And I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing straight out of my Social Security check, which is what I've been doing. This will be week 29 for me, okay, that I've been doing this. And the businesses that I quoted have been in a big support for me, right? They've actually helped me quite a bit. So that's what I'm asking. and I appreciate you listening to me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Norma Williams, Chapter President, Delaware County Employees Association, SEIU 1021. Yeah, I have to agree that what is appalling is what the sheriffs are being offered in terms of pay. But what is equally appalling is what county employees who we represent are being paid. You are losing employees in those areas as well, whether they are fully funded or funded through the general fund. Your vacancy rates are going up. You are losing county employees that are providing critical services to this community. Some may not agree with that, those services are necessary, but trust me, they are. Whether they're mandated or demanded by this community, you are losing county employees as a result. I hear about that almost every single week. I have someone always telling me, hey, Norma, behavioral health just lost someone. Hey, Norma, someone left over in this area. Keep that in mind when you're also wanting to look at pay overall. And I can tell you right now, we cannot wait for that comp study. We've been told that's what you want us to do, is to wait until March of next year when it's done, and then have us review it. No, hell no, that ain't happening. We can't afford to wait. No more than the Sheriff Employees Association can wait. No more than maybe mid-management. But I know that right now the bleed is coming out of SCA and out of SEIU. You're bleeding employees. You're losing us. We can't wait for that. I know that's part of your plan, but trust me, it's not a plan that fits into our lives, professionally and personally. I know what you can do with that plan, but my grandmother, late grandmother, always told me to be a lady, so I'll try. Keep also in mind one other thing, and that is Measure R funding. I know that Measure R primarily was also set for law enforcement, but also for critical infrastructure here, but also it helped in terms of those who we represent, in terms of those vital structures, out of probation, out of the district attorney's office, out of CDD, as a matter of fact. So keep that in mind when you're wanting to see what you're going to do, because it's not only the sheriff's department that's going to be impacted, it's also going to be us, who we represent. Just to remind you of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none? Bring it up to the 10:30 item, and we receive a quarterly update on the status and progress of the board's 24-25 organizational strategic plan as requested by the Assistant County Administrative Officer.
Good morning, Board. Randy Hooper, Assistant County Administrative Officer. Very happy to be with you this morning, giving you an update, actually your second update on the progress of your board-approved organizational strategic plan. So we did just wrap up the first quarter after the board approved the plan effective July 1st for this fiscal year. And just to remind the board and the public, the planning framework for the plan included 3 levels. The focus areas was kind of that broadest view where we were kind of, shooting as broadly as we could. The goals were getting a little bit tighter within the focus area of the framework. And then the third level, the tightest, most innermost level, are the action items. And so those are the actionable strategies that the board approved to deal with the focus areas and the goals. And so again, that's just kind of a broad overview, reminder of the planning framework that we use to develop the plan. Getting into the specifics, there were 4 focus areas. The first focus area had to do with some of the issues that are being discussed this morning, which are certainly critical to us as an organization and the community more broadly, and that is the staffing and capacity of the county. There were 4 goals that were identified within this focus area. The first goal was to reduce vacancy rates. The second was to improve recruitment outcomes and expedite the hiring process. The third was to reduce employee turnover and increase retention. And then the last goal within this focus area was to improve access to housing opportunities for county employees, because we know that is certainly a barrier. The second focus area had to do with infrastructure and economic development, because these are critical issues to the community. The first goal within this focus area was maintaining and improving county facilities and infrastructure. The second was supporting countywide economic development. And the third goal within this focus area was improving the aesthetics of county-owned properties and facilities. The third focus area of the plan had to do with law, justice, and homelessness. The first goal was improving the indigent defense program, or the public defense services of the county. The second was proactively and collaboratively addressing homelessness within the community. And then the third goal within this focus area was improving interventions with justice-involved youth. The fourth and final focus area of the strategic plan had to do with general governance and the budget, maintaining core service levels, practicing fiscal responsibility, improving oversight of county programs and services, and embedding strategic planning into the culture and budget process of the county. So being that this is a progress report, where are we? We did, just as I noted, complete the first quarter. We are about 20% complete on the action items included. And if you'll remember, the strategic plan definitely focused on this first year, but it was a long-term plan too. Some of the action items, some of the goals, some of the focus areas obviously had to do with initiatives that are a little bit further out. But I'm happy to report that within the action items that were included, we're 20% complete. Kind of breaking that down a little bit within the focus areas. Under the county staffing and capacity, we're about 20%. Under infrastructure and economic development, we're about 10%. Under law, justice, and homelessness, we're about 20%. And then largely in part because of the adoption of the budget, under the general governance and budget category, we're about 32% along. So that's kind of a broad perspective on our progress. One of the features that we're really excited about and that we've reported on throughout, I think, the development of this plan is really the transparency and the accessibility of the data. So if anybody wants to drill down deeper into what any of these kind of big issues relate to specifically, you can definitely do that. One of the things that we did in the recent weeks was included under the county's website a very easy way to access the plan, just like the other kind of focus areas that have been highlighted under the county's website. Things like Measure R and employment opportunities, things like that you would typically go to a county website to try to look at. We included a very obvious button that you can just click on, and it will take you directly into the plan. And the plan is updated in real time. So as progress is being reported, the data that's included will reflect that. There'll be specific measurables and targets that are included under the strategic plan. That's very readily available to anybody with a computer. So what it looks like when you get into the portal, and it's a little bit hard to see on the screen here, but it kind of gives you the idea. This is, for anyone who hasn't been there already, this is the strategic plan portal. And this is kind of the broad perspective view that I've already presented, which is just looking in terms of implementation of kind of broadly where we're at with these focus areas, goals, and action items. And then again, you can drill down into the details as you kind of dive into a little bit deeper. This is an example of focus area number 1, where we can see our 19% completion. I think I said 20 earlier, it's actually 19. But then towards the bottom of the page, you can see those focus areas, and you can see whether they're in progress, whether they're on track, whether there's any disruption, and where they're at kind of in that process. And if you were to drill down a little deeper through this page under those specific goals, you would actually pull up the specific action item that's kind of associated with that. So tons of information, really good details. And again, we really do hope the public is engaged on this, because it's It's intentionally designed to be very transparent and available to the public. So we're really happy with how it's working so far, and we're hoping it's being utilized. So kind of on a more granular level, within, again, the focus areas and the goals, the board this year was very aggressive with the action items that were included. This was, I don't know if it was the first time the county's ever done a strategic plan, but I think it's certainly, it's been a while at a minimum. And so I think it's important to recognize that, through the engagement process that happened in putting this plan together, the perspective that we really tried to present as staff and then the board and the public kind of engaged in through the process was that the work that's being done here is very foundational. I know that in the public workshops that we had, for example, there was a real appetite to, get very, kind of exotic, if you will, with some of the programs and services that would be offered. And I think the board, kind of in recognition of that it's been a while since we've done the strategic planning process, if ever, was that there really were some kind of foundational things that had to be established. And so when you go through these items, none of them really jump off the page as particularly exciting. I think we could all admit that, but they're really important work. And so hopefully we can continue to make progress on these action items as we move through the year. And then in future years, now that the strategic plan has been adopted as policy by the board as something that they're going to be doing every year, or that we're going to be doing as an organization every year, I think these are going to hopefully grow over time into things that maybe represent different issues as they present themselves. So in terms of mid-cycle adjustments, this is one of the things that we talked about when the plan was initially presented, was that there are still capacity issues. And admittedly, the action item list was very, very broad, understanding that we wouldn't be able to probably do everything maybe in the first year. And so we had to be very systematic in how we designed it for implementation, by quarterly basis over the first year, and then into the second and the third year and into future years. There will be things that do come up. And so from a capacity standpoint, I don't think it's realistic to expect that organizationally we're going to be able to just continue to add items to the plan. And so through the policy that was approved by the board, there's kind of limitations on, whenever new direction is given, how that gets incorporated into our list of priorities. And so there's a couple here that I just wanted to mention briefly and maybe have a little bit of a conversation on, that we can hopefully get further into what the direction means on in maybe a future meeting. But the one is an item that's already been taken up, and that had to do with, I guess, kind of the sense of urgency to deal with economic development in the light of the dissolution of the tri-agency JPA. And so that item was approved to be moved up by the board. And as Chair Wilson reported, it is underway through the board's technical advisory committee. And hopefully there'll be a feasibility report made available to the board and the public very soon. But it's an example of whenever changes need to get made, mid-cycle on something like this, something else probably has to be bumped, is the reality of it. And so recently there was direction given by the board having to do with the microgrid, as an example with SciLogic. Obviously, board direction is board direction, and staff will do everything we can to move that conversation forward and to have an understanding of what's being proposed, but it is going to have the effect of modifying another action item that was previously approved by the board. Again, it's a capacity issue, and to put it simply, we can't do it all. There are limitations on what can be done, so we'll need to figure that out. One example, just maybe food for thought, is something that the board has previously engaged in discussion on with respect to the public defender's office. One of the action items included under improving community indigent defense had to do with forming a public defender's office. Based on that board direction, I think we've done 3 recruitment cycles to date and haven't to date been able to appoint a public defender. So would this be an example, maybe in the broader conversation, of something that we could maybe figure out a different tactic for and maybe move that microgrid conversation up? Just as an example of how we need to be thinking about this. We're anticipating on that specific item, bringing a recommendation back to the board at the next meeting. So October 22nd, we should have hopefully some ideas, a little more constructive, tangible ideas presented for how we may be able to do some of these mid-cycle adjustments. Really just kind of a heads up on that, and certainly welcome any input you guys may have now or later on that. As I said, Q2 progress report. I'm happy to be here and available for any questions. I think we're making pretty good progress. I think the plan is moving forward at a good pace. It'll be interesting to move into the third and fourth quarter of this year and see how we wrap some of these items up. But with that, Neil and I are available for any questions.
And my understanding is that projected out is that we will be again in looking at our strategic plan as a whole by the board members and other staff, department heads, looking at what adjustments, additions, changes as we look at the 25-26 strategic plan. So it's not a one-time fire and forget type of thing. This is an ongoing process, and so we will be re-engaging on this strategic plan as we go forward, so that the board sets the table, so to speak, for the upcoming budgetary meetings and talks as prior to the budget discussions even beginning. So,
no, I appreciate some of I appreciate the discussion around the last slide. I want to add to Chair Wilson's comments. I've always seen the strategic plan, which is, as you've noted, long overdue for this community, for this county, and direction for staff, and we've done a great job getting there. But that strategic planning process absolutely has to stay fluid as we look to the future, because things are going to change. But you've pointed out a critical bottleneck, which is our capacity. And we've always had capacity issues here. But there's ways to deal with that. And obviously, we did have an agency that addressed economic development. That was a curveball that was thrown at us. And now we have to switch gears. We've put economic development as a priority in our strategic plan. We will find a way to address it, and obviously we formed an ad hoc committee to get there. The site logic piece, specific to microgrids, basically the need from staff right now, the direction was given to the board, was to figure out a step that will involve most likely the deputy CAO, the CAO, and county council to bring back to this board a letter of agreement, which is typical of what is shared with tribal governments, with cities and counties that have already done this process. It was very intentional thought process by bringing them in, is because they're a one-stop shop. Essentially, they bring the capacity we need without the dollar expended by this county to get there. That was what was critical about the site logic tool, is that we're not going to get money spent out of our pocket even before we have potentially a plan in place with some funding opportunities from state and federal agencies that provide towards these critical infrastructure needs. So this is, I see at least a letter of agreement that could potentially come before the board here in the next month or so as a minor step to get us towards that security that the board direction gave. So my hope is that as we look to the future and build that capacity, we reflect back on the strategic plan being more fluid and not as a tool to put continued pressure on staff, but a way to juggle as we see priorities come about. And I think our staff in particular, especially you, Deputy CAO, have the ability to maneuver quite well. You've demonstrated that over time in your many years with this county community, with the airport. So I look forward to working with you to meet those capacity needs when we feel as staff that there are shortfalls there. I don't be afraid to look to this board to help fill those capacity needs, because we all have brains on our shoulders too that could help us get there. It's not just a one-person show. So reach out if there are shortcomings. So that's my statement. Take it for what it's worth.
any other comment from the board? The only other thing I will mention is that one of the issues that was critical to retention and hiring is HR. and the impediment that we had in HR. And today we're addressing that in number 16 by hiring a department head for a department head for HR, because there are issues critical to the hiring process. One of the biggest impediments that DHSS, Sheriff's Office has indicated is the speed at which the hiring process takes effect, in that from application to offer, job offer, and trying to expedite that process, because it had historically taken too long at times, and we lost qualified applicants because other counties picked them up, other communities picked them up faster than we could go through the process. And that's one of the things that is in our discussions to hiring this director, made them aware of, and hopefully this is one step in that process that is being addressed, and has been a big problem within Delaware County at this point in time, that HR component. And this is our steps towards fixing that problem, and hopefully we will see the fruits of that as we go forward. Any public comment?
Appreciate the effort that this assistant administrator put into this plan. I apologize for the fact that I had a very great deal of difficulty hearing and understanding what he had to say. Not his fault, but I'm looking at this board and I'm wondering how a plan can be fluid, and I'm wondering who chose what is imperative, and I don't expect an answer, but I'm wondering what benefit the community has from this monster that you've created, where we're going to go from, not having the capability of, completing any of the tasks that you assigned the employees of the county. I think that a strategic plan may be something that should have been a long time in coming, but I'm not sure that now we have a strategic plan, we have anything at all that is going to help us, that there are too many holes to fill. I am particularly concerned about the sheriff's office, as you are probably well aware of, and I don't see any effort on the part of this board to fill that hole. And I don't know whether you're capable of filling that hole, to be quite honest with you. I have spent some time down at the harbor, and I don't know whether they're capable of filling the holes that they have. It's somewhat of a disappointment that county government has a budget of $242 million this coming year, and roughly only 45 of it is in the general fund. It doesn't leave a whole lot of hope for much in the way of this strategic plan to come to fruition. I hope that at some point you get more realistic about what we can and can't do, and you focus on what is probably the most important parts of county government, rather than things like a microgrid, which is, like me having 3 extra cars. It doesn't really pan out to the average person in the county. We survived both 60 years ago and this last year. Nobody died. Nobody was concerned about having redundant power. I didn't worry about having my cell phone not working. I don't carry it very often.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? Seeing none. Supervisor Howard, will you want to introduce the next?
I'd love to. Thank you,
Oh.
Mr. Chairman.
I think this is the presentation.
The 1040 timed item that we're going to have here, which is a presentation from Caltrans on the state welcome monument, has been a source of pride for me now for several years, and I've had a great partnership with Julie Peterson, who's here with us today from Caltrans. Just so you're aware, it became a concern for me every time I drove up 101, whether it was going to Fred Meyer or whether it was heading over to Medford to do my Costco trip and passing giant Oregon signs that just said, "Welcome to Oregon." It was great to see. But then you turned around and look in your rearview mirror and you got this little blue sign sitting there that says, "Welcome to California." And you got people stopping to take pictures there. And so we had this incredible opportunity that came before us here a couple years ago with Beautify California. And Julia has been working on that in Region 1 as Point and Caltrans now for quite some period of time, and really came forward with a great idea how we could step up our game against Oregon in this case and really welcome people to the state. Because we have 2 entries into our state, right here in our border and right in District 3. So I asked Julia to be here today to show you what we've been working on now for a year or so more, and hopefully to get your support on this what I feel is a great critical project for our community. Julia?
Thank you, Supervisor Howard. So I am Julia Peterson, Caltrans District 1 Clean California Coordinator and Project Manager. And so I have a pretty short presentation for you today because pictures are better than me describing monuments, right? Go ahead to the next slide. So the first thing I want to remind everyone, Clean California, as we were coming out of the pandemic, Governor Newsom realized that there was some work to do to get us back on track. He created a $1.2 billion program called Clean California. It was a transformative initiative, next slide, and with the goals of removing litter, creating jobs, and beautifying California. And so go ahead to the next slide. Basically, the $1.2 billion was divided roughly into a third for each of those areas. And Del Norte County and Crescent City and all of this area have all participated in all 3. So I'm not really going to go any more into Clean California in general today. If the board is interested at a future time, I'm happy to come back and give you a summary of all of the activities that have happened here. So let's move on to today. Today we're going to look at the local, on the left it says Caltrans beautification, and this is a Caltrans, or these are 2 Caltrans projects to beautify Del Norte County. So go ahead. And as Supervisor Howard said, we're looking at state entry monuments. I will admit the first time I drove north on 199 and saw that really nice sign that Oregon did, I thought, wow, we're California. We can do at least that good, right? That is a nice sign. Let's face it. So go forward to the next slide. So what we're looking at is on 199, and we are moving forward. These are going to move forward with what we call the speed of Clean California, which means we are going to build these in the next couple of months. The draft for the 199, we did a survey late winter, and bears was the theme that everyone wanted. So you can see a representation there, the current sign on the left. It's a nice sign. If you get up to it, you can see from here, it's not a new sign. It has a little wear and tear, living on the side of the highway as it does. So this is representation, but we are still working with the vendor. If you want to go to the next slide, you can see the bears. The poppies come in a couple different options. We're trying to come up with the final color schemes. You can go to the next slide. This will give you an idea of the scale. The newest version is about 17 feet wide and 15 feet tall. It's going to be a large monument. So we'll be able to see it. Go ahead to the next slide. To give you an idea, we will be putting in some concrete walkway. If you go to the existing slide, you don't notice that there's sorry, I talk about slides a lot, but this is a sign. So there's a culvert there that when you take the existing sign and we put something 18 feet wide, starts to become, in the way, shall we say. So we're going to have to redo the culvert and put in some sidewalk there. We'll do quite a few adjustments to make it look nice. This is just an artist's rendering. And you can go forward one more, give you an idea of scale. it will be visible if you don't hit the brake on your way. But as with the sign now, there's a really large gravel parking area where you can pull over, take pictures, where people take pictures, as Supervisor Howard said, of the existing sign. And we've designed this so that California is up high. When they stand next to it, they might block welcomes you, but they will still have California and our well-known shape. So that's really what we're looking at for 101. We're pretty well set on the bears. The colors have not quite been determined, but we did use a survey through Wild Rivers Outpost to come up with what the community wanted. Can I answer questions on 199 before we move on to 101?
Oh, so this is 199?
That's 199.
Okay. I feel as if California is saying to Oregon, hold my beer. I think this is beautiful. I think it's going to be amazing. But now Oregon's going to feel they need to step it up because this is just remarkable.
Well, they definitely put up a very nice monument, and theirs will continue to be very nice. But we are California, and we wanted to do something that is appropriate for our state.
Okay, so this is 199. You're going to show us 101 next. Perfect.
So we're going to move on to 101. So
I just wanted to ask, is this going to be bigger than the Oregon sign?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure.
Much.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Just saying. So 199 we're finalizing it. The monument will be constructed and installed later this year. So moving on to, while we're looking at this, or actually you can go forward to the next slide. For 101, we want to take the same base in California and the shape of California, but change out the bears, or maybe not change out the bears. So we're getting ready to do a survey here, again, through Wild Rivers Outpost and just through Caltrans Online, asking the community, what do you see as the representatives for the coast? So seals have been suggested. We had a mother and a baby bear. Do we want a mother and a baby seal? And you can see the picture right now. There's a nice big turnout, much of which is provided courtesy of the state of Oregon. So we can't pave theirs, but it's there. This is someone actually taking a picture of that sign, so we think our new sign will give them something much nicer to take advantage. And if you look all the way to the left on that photo, you can see the construction of the new Oregon sign. So we're right there, coming and going. One difference you'll see with both of our signs is their signs just have a back of the sign, and ours say drive safely on the back. So we actually make the back look like a sign. So let's go to the next step. So these are some of the ideas that we've had, and I'm hoping for some feedback from the supervisors, and then we will be going out with a survey for public input as to which creatures do we want on the side. We think that the ocean is an obvious option. The bears, if we like the bears, that would be the easiest option, is to do more bears. Seals have been suggested, salmon or other fish. Some people like the seahorse. Someone else thought we should put the whale on one side and his tail on the other. We're pretty open. The one thing we wanted but we don't think will work is an elk. And unfortunately, those antlers will be very easy to break. And so we have not, the elk without antlers just did not look quite the same. So we figured even if we ordered it with antlers, it would be an elk without antlers shortly. And so we're looking at something that would be durable, that would look good. Do you have input for me today, or?
So even before you asked for input, I wrote down salmon. I really feel like that represents so much of our area, especially with the removal of the Klamath Dam and how we're trying to bring back the salmon to our area. But the elk probably would be a really good one too. But I hear your concerns about that.
Yeah.
So not so much on the concept. I just had a question about, I know these are in kind of remote areas. Are these able to be lit? Not.
They are not lit. Our thinking is headlights will light them. We looked at doing lighting, and it would have to be solar lighting, and it just ended up not really being the better option. So,
I have one more question is, are we consulting with our tribes in this area as well? Are we bringing in maybe some tribal lettering or something to kind of incorporate them into this as well?
we have consulted. We always consult with the tribe as part of the tribes as part of our environmental process. We have not looked at adding in tribal lettering.
I know I've had a lot of input into this process over the years, but I'm really encouraged from where we started to where we've gotten to now. And I know having that distinction inland versus on the coast is critical to this next step of 101, and more importantly, the input that we'll hear from our little push in the news. So one thing I would suggest, having another crack at this, is substituting out the rock that you currently see in the bear effort, and considering waves, ocean waves, with the idea that Supervisor Starkey came up with the salmon. It is a regional piece for the entry here, from here down to San Francisco, and in addition, the water, which we're next to, I think would be attractive with those two pieces inserted and not easily vandalized.
It's a fabulous idea. That survey might take a little longer because I'll have to talk to our landscape architect and see if that's possible. So,
and not that I ever reject anything ocean, especially seals. But what I would recommend is maybe instead of the small bear up on the top is a representation of our redwoods on that side, and then the large bear on the right side. My right, anyway, would be great. Just because that is one of the main visitation drivers for our community, is coming to see their coastal redwoods. And
how would you picture that looking?
I would just look like on that left side, behind part of that California would be just a representation of
just a
several
tree?
several redwood trees.
Several redwood trees.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of along that vein is where we often say that we are where the redwoods meet the sea. So I'm liking that kind of between Supervisor Howard's waves and his redwood tree.
Okay, great.
Some good ideas.
Good ideas. I'm glad I'm not the landscape architect. What else other ideas? If we have public comment, I'm more than happy to take ideas. So if something comes to mind between now and when we build this, actually very soon, feel free to let me know. Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment?
Just one, you're not going to be able to use Lost Coast Outpost for your survey because they died.
Yes, but it has been replaced by Redwood Voice, and Jessica is now working to mentor Redwood Voice students.
Yeah, I wouldn't rely a whole lot on Redwood Voice.
Any other public comment?
Yeah, I think the sign's cool. I like the water and the redwoods part, and I would do salmon with an osprey. That's how I think it should look. It would.
Any other comments? Thank you so much. We could put organ sucks on the backside of that. That brings us to item number 16 in our agenda. Appointing of Carrie Vu as Director of Human Resources and Risk Management at Range A6, Step F. Appointed department head salary schedule effective October 1st, 2024, and approved the accrual rates equal to 6 through 10 years of service reflective of Mrs. Boo's years of human resources and risk management related experience as requested by the county administrative officer.
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, bring it back to the vote.
Supervisor Borges.
Yes.
Supervisor Howard.
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey.
Yes.
Chair Wilson.
Yes. And that brings us to 17, discuss and take possible action canceling the regular Board of Supervisors meeting scheduled on Tuesday, November 26th, 2024, due to Thanksgiving holiday, as requested by me.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion. Do we have a second?
I'm going to second, but I also want to say that oftentimes when we have that length of time between meetings, we have to call a special meeting.
That
So
happens occasionally.
That to me is a little bit more disruptive than just having a regular meeting with a very short agenda. However, if this is something that the chair wishes to do, I will support it, so I will second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any public comment? Hearing none, bring it back to the vote.
Supervisor Borges.
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey.
Yes.
Supervisor Howard.
Yes.
Chair Wilson.
Yes. Number 18, introduce the title only Delaware County Fireworks Ordinance 2, waive further reading. Set a public hearing to adopt the ordinance on October 22nd, 2024, and designate the clerk of the board to prepare a summary of the ordinance for publication as requested by County Council. This is an issue that's been, this ordinance will model exactly what the city has had and has had for decades, really. They don't do a lot of enforcement through that process, but it does allow our county and the sheriff's office in particular to be able to actually do a confiscation of fireworks that are not safe and sane, those that are approved for utilization in California. And because of the, in order for there to be a criminal action through the fire, there has to be, I think it's 2,000, something like that, pounds of these illegal fireworks for them to be considered to be a felony. And so what we have here is an enforcement process that would allow non-fire law enforcement personnel to confiscate and issue a citation that could result in an administrative hearing held by the county and would result in a first violation fine of up to $1,000. This again reflects exactly what the city is, and hopefully, having that both city and county identical, it'll allow us to have a uniformity of enforcement process as to where the administrative hearing will be held and by whom. Those details will be fleshed out as we go forward. But this is the first step in public notification of this process and of the ordinance recommendation going forward. Is there any public comment?
So who's going to be able to enforce this ordinance?
Sheriff's Department would be able to enforce. They would be law enforcement would be able to issue this, or code enforcement could issue. This is a county violation of the ordinance that would be placed into effect. And then any violation would be heard by an administrative, it would be an administrative matter and not a court hearing or a court issue.
So there's laws on the books already.
In the city it is. We do not have one corresponding for the county. This would be a county ordinance that mirrors what the city already has.
But there are laws on the books already.
There are, but we have no enforcement mechanism through our local law enforcement or through our local code enforcement. Those ordinances that are on the books that are specific for fireworks are only able to be enforced by fire law enforcement, and the only fire law enforcement representation in Delaware County at this point in time is CAL FIRE.
So in essence, you already can't enforce the ordinances you already have on the books. The illegal fireworks.
We have no ordinances on the books that, however, the fire code does. But again, a lot of the violations are, whether it's a 415 noise violation, whether it's a a injury like we saw recently, those are penal code violations, and those can be enforced at any time by local law enforcement.
But
That's why the district attorney is prosecuting that last,
But you already can't enforce them because you don't have the people to do that.
Well, we can enforce them, and that's what resulted in the charges being filed.
But you can't enforce them.
We did
because
enforce
you don't
it.
have the people.
Well, we
To
did
go
enforce
around
it. We did bring charges, and they are
Yeah,
facing.
after the fact, ever since. 'cause somebody-
Well, that's always the fact of a crime, is always after the fact.
Yeah,
We never arrest people for something they haven't done.
but you can have a presence that would encourage people not to create. Crime.
Prevention is the choice. That was the preferred choice.
You don't
However,
have that.
it is always,
You don't
hit and
have
miss.
that.
Hello. This seems like a really good idea. I was wondering, is there a way to access the ordinance that you're talking about so I could possibly read it? Because I know the harbor is also doing that right now. They have a presentation on their ordinance, which they said they're mirroring it on something. I don't know if it was the city one. I think it might have been. So I just was wondering if I could get that information. That would be helpful. And then anything just relating to ordinance is already on the books, like you're saying that it's enforced by mostly the fire code and stuff like that. And you don't have to provide it right now, but if I could get it later or something, that'd be really helpful. Oh, is it? It's already linked to it and everything? Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm busy. I don't always have time. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, so regarding what he's saying, it prevented. So my main goal, if I can interface with enough of the leadership on the ad hoc and whatnot with this collaborative effort for the firework to change it to a safe and sane environment and counter the reputation and the culture that's developed over the years, we have to focus on preventative and positive incentive approaches to guide behaviors to the safe behaviors that we want to see. Part of the suggestions that I have that I was going to be meeting with the city manager and the city chief, I kind of outlined some of my ideas, like for block party environments, and then making sure that there's access in several locations in the county, and addressing like people being able to access it because some people don't have transportation. Doing like raffles, for showing up and having lots of free things, and it is going to be a money investment. Don't get me wrong, but we really have to invest in people and invest in preventative, and then it's going to give us dividends within a very short time, very short. So we do have to pull together resources. I'm hoping to get with them specifically about funding. If it's the general fund, if it's one of the Measure R, Measure S, if it's RPC, helping with, any of those agencies. I'm trying to get like a list of who could we possibly partner with to help with funding, because we do need a big push of funding to get the preventative and the positive incentive approaches off the ground. And a big component of that is what I call the media blast, which is messaging now throughout and all the way through to the next holiday. And then I would be open to helping to get local businesses involved. So tied in with the raffle idea, we could have lovely gift baskets. We could have really fun events. We could have things where they get trophies for most patriotic person, most patriotic pet. I've reached out to orchestras to do patriotic concerts. We could do classical ones, country rock, just with real patriotic themes. So that's the sort of stuff that I'm highly, highly trying to get done, is the positive incentive approach and preventative measures.
Thank you.
Well, this ordinance, and I'm hoping County Council will clear up a little bit about, because I think there might have been some, just can you clear up what this ordinance intention is?
So what California defines as dangerous fireworks are criminally illegal in the whole entire state. But up until you have 2,000 pounds of them, it is just a misdemeanor offense. So pretty low level. What this ordinance does is give the county an administrative way of dealing with them. So through the fine process, the administrative hearing that was mentioned, it would be similar to what is done through code enforcement. So it's the same type of procedure. We already have administrative hearing officers that hear code enforcement cases, so it would be similar to that. But this just gives, it's sort of another tool in the tool belt in order to try to deal with the dangerous fireworks situation in town. Because, as you know, it's difficult to prosecute criminally, and especially when you're dealing with something as low level as a misdemeanor. But perhaps if someone is getting a $1,000 fine, it might deter the behavior.
Thank you. And we are mirroring not only the cities, and the harbor is going to also be presenting something. They are looking to actually ban all fireworks from the harbor, which that's their choice to do, similar to what we're doing in our campgrounds. We don't even want the safe and sane in our campgrounds, and that's included in here too. While lots of us prefer less government, we do. But unfortunately, because of the incidents that happened last 4th of July, I don't think we can turn a blind eye anymore. I think that we have to come out with and respond to what the public has asked of us. I do believe that this is in response to the many people that showed up here at the board meeting, the meeting following the 4th of July. So I do appreciate the work that County Council has put into this. I put this out on my Facebook, got a lot of really great responses for that. The community is grateful for the work that has been put into this. My only question is on section 4 under subsection B. We identify the CDL, which is California Driver's License. I'm not a lawyer, but if I was a lawyer, I would say it was from Oregon. He had a different driver's license. So I don't know if we need to clarify that. There is a typo, and I can get with you on just the small little typos that should be done there. And but again, I just appreciate the work. Now that this ordinance, if we can have it approved and then next time have it enacted, then the ad hoc committee is going to then start pushing out we do believe that education is the most important thing, to let the people know that this is something that the sheriff's department is going to enforce. Sheriff Scott is leading this. He's basically saying this is what needs to happen. He's organizing the state help. He's organizing, the camping ordinances and making sure that we're enforcing those as well. So this is the board's part in helping solve this problem.
Any public comment? Oh, you did. Sorry.
Hi, I almost forgot about a really important one. So doing a hotline, and I don't know if this is something legal, because there's always seems to be legal constraints to stuff, but since you're working out the ordinance, a big component that I think is really important that will help is having a hotline set up that will give money for tips that end in confiscation. So something like $100 or something, I'm not sure. It has to be worth their while, but I do believe because people get illegals way ahead of the holiday, you could get hotline if you put that up quick, you could get tips quick. And then, there are people that make mortars and stuff. People are really into it, as you can see. The culture here, they live for it or something. So that would be a big part of the preventative and involving the community. So getting that message out early, I feel is really a big key there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Norma Williams, I'm just going to speak as an ordinary citizen. I actually reside here in the county. I mean, not the county, but in the city. I am in support of any ordinance, city, harbor, county, that will basically ensure general public safety when it comes to fireworks. I know what happened on July 4th was, great with the ones that we actually had paid for, but it was almost like driving through a war zone afterwards when you still had people shooting off all those big, huge fireworks in the air. It's like, how do I get back to my house? That was interesting. I think the only thing that I'm kind of concerned about, and it's something that I had thought about as all the talk of ordinances was being stated, and I, again, support it, is the fact that when we're selling fireworks here in the county, you're having people doing it for fundraising. So I'm just wondering what that impact is going to be on those who are actually fundraising. We have that through the high school, through various organizations, through churches. So that was probably my biggest question, was how will this ordinance impact fundraising efforts here in the county? Thank you.
The only fireworks that are illegal in California are what are considered dangerous fireworks. The fireworks that are sold by the student organizations are defined as safe and sane fireworks, and those are legal in the state. This ordinance doesn't affect those except for in campgrounds and in public parks. It would have a complete ban on all fireworks. And that direction did come from the building maintenance parks director, who indicated that they already kind of enforce that within given where our campgrounds are, but he did want to see an update to our actual ordinances that reflect that.
Sorry, so then my only question will be then, will this ordinance be more specific in outlining what will be considered safe and usable? So that those that would not fall within the ordinance?
There's a specific definition in that's written into the ordinance that comes from state law that defines the difference between them. You can't get a permit to sell fireworks in the state of California unless they're the safe and sane. So if you take a look at the ordinance, it has definitions for both safe and sane and dangerous.
Okay, well then that's fine. I guess then the only thing would be the educational piece, which I definitely support, as well as what the young lady said here. I think as long as we start to once this is enacted, getting the education piece out there so that people will know what is or is not allowed. So I do support this. Thank you.
Bring it back to the board.
I'll motion to approve.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Please poll the vote.
Supervisor Howard.
Yes.
Supervisor Borges.
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey.
Yes.
Chair Wilson.
Yes. And that brings us to number 19, approve and authorize step increase to A11, step G, effective September 11th, 2024, to the Agricultural Commissioner, Sealer of Weights and Measures, as requested by the Board of Supervisors.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any public comment?
Another executive gets a pay raise.
Any other public comment? Pull the vote.
Supervisor Borges.
Yes.
Supervisor Starkey.
Yes.
Supervisor Howard.
Yes.
Chair Wilson.
Yes. That'll conclude our regular scheduled meeting. Thank you for your attention.